Welcome to today's episode, where we dive into the Cryptoterrestrial Hypothesis, a fascinating theory that suggests unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAPs, might be linked to hidden non-human intelligences right here on Earth, possibly underground. We'll explore the limits of our historical and geological knowledge, evidence of lost civilizations, ancient stories of underground worlds, and UAP activity beneath the surface, underwater, and even on the moon. While this theory may seem improbable, it's worth investigating with an open mind. Let's dig deep into the unknown. From endless talks that never end, and documents you won't defend, what no one cared to ever read, we bring to life with perfect speed.
Welcome to another Missing Time podcast.
Okay, so get this. Today's deep dive is it's a weird one. We're going down a rabbit hole, even for us.
Sounds intriguing already.
We're talking about the Cryptoterrestrial Hypothesis.
Okay, I've heard whispers, but I'm ready for the full rundown. What is it exactly?
So imagine this. What if some of those crazy UAP sightings, the ones that have everyone baffled, what if they're not aliens from some distant galaxy?
Okay, I'm following. What's the alternative?
What if they're cryptoterrestrial?
Meaning
They've been here all along.
they're here on Earth?
Yeah, hidden in the deepest, darkest corners of our own planet.
So instead of looking up at the stars, we should be looking down. That's kind of mind-blowing.
Right. Like right under our noses the whole time.
Ah.
I know, it sounds like something straight out of science fiction. But that's why we're here. We're diving deep into this academic paper, and it's a dense one. It's called the Cryptoterrestrial Hypothesis Finalized Paper. And believe me, we're going to make it fun. But first things first, why are we even entertaining this idea?
Well, what's so interesting about this paper is that it actually presents a surprisingly compelling case. They argue that while the CTH, that's what they're calling it, the Cryptoterrestrial Hypothesis, they're saying that while it's definitely a minority view, it's not as completely out there as it might seem when you first hear about it.
So they're not just saying, hey, maybe there are aliens living in a volcano somewhere. They've actually thought this through.
They have. In fact, they break the whole cryptoterrestrial hypothesis down into 4 distinct categories.
4 types of hidden neighbors. Okay, now you've got my attention. Break it down for me.
Okay. Imagine this. CTH1, that's the first one. It proposes that there's a technologically advanced human civilization. Lost to history, of course, but they went underground ages ago.
Like a long, long time ago.
Yeah, maybe even surviving some global catastrophe, like a massive flood, and they sought refuge in the Earth's depths.
Like a super advanced version of those underground bunkers people are building for the apocalypse. But instead of just surviving, they thrived and built a whole civilization down there.
That's the idea.
That's wild. I mean, it makes me think about like the Anasazi people in the American Southwest. Those cliff dwellings, they seemingly vanished.
Right.
Could something like that have happened on a larger scale?
It is a compelling thought. Now, CTH2, that one suggests that maybe it wasn't humans that went underground. Maybe it was a totally different intelligent species.
Whoa, okay. A whole other species just hanging out underground.
Yeah, that evolved alongside us, hidden from view.
Like how we're still discovering new species of insects and those creepy deep-sea creatures all the time.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
What if we've just missed something? Bigger.
Precisely.
Okay, now we're talking like Bigfoot, but with like underwater cities or something.
Okay, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I'm in. What's next?
CTH3, this one takes us into slightly more familiar territory, ancient aliens.
Okay, I've heard of those guys.
But here's the twist. Instead of just visiting Earth, they set up shop. They're still here.
Wait, so they didn't just pop in to say hi and then take off?
Nope, they decided to stay.
Hidden in those deep ocean trenches we know nothing about. So not just spaceships, but underwater bases.
That's the idea.
This is getting good. Okay, give me the last one and please tell me it's not subterranean lizard people.
Well, CTH4 is where things get a bit more, shall we say, out there. This one proposes that the intelligence behind some UAPs might be something else entirely.
Something else. Like what?
Something that we might even consider to be supernatural.
Supernatural.
Like fairies, mythical creatures, things like that. Things that exist outside of our current understanding of physics.
Okay, even I have to draw the line at fairies. But in all seriousness, this is what I love about these deep dives. It makes you question everything. But I have to ask, what kind of evidence is there to support any of this? And I'm not talking about the fairies.
That's where things get really interesting. One of the biggest pieces of evidence that this paper presents is the increasing number of reports of UAPs operating underwater. We're not just talking about your average unidentified submerged objects here. We're talking about things exhibiting technology that seems to be light years ahead of our own.
You mean like those USOs, unidentified submerged objects we hear about?
Exactly. We're talking about reports of objects moving at incredible speeds, making sudden dives, even transitioning seamlessly between air and water.
This is making me think about that incident off the coast of Puerto Rico that Commander Fravor talked about. Where something seemed to go from the air right into the water at an impossible speed.
Precisely. Those kinds of accounts, especially coming from credible sources like military personnel, they make you wonder, what is going on down there? And this paper suggests that maybe, just maybe, those underwater UAPs could be connected to a civilization that's made the ocean depths their home.
Okay, but if there really is a whole civilization hiding right under the surface, wouldn't we have found something by now, like some hard evidence?
That's the question, isn't it? And the paper acknowledges that. Their argument is basically twofold. First, they remind us that our exploration of the Earth, especially the oceans, it's shockingly limited.
That's true. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do about our own ocean floor.
Exactly. We've explored a tiny fraction of the oceans, let alone any of those deep, potentially unexplored caverns that they talk about in this paper. So who knows what might be hidden in those places?
It's like we always say, right? The universe is stranger than we can imagine, and this paper seems to prove that. It's really making me question everything. But let's play devil's advocate for a minute. Let's say there is something to this idea. Shouldn't we have found something by now? Some kind of evidence?
That is a very valid question, and this paper knows it's a challenge for the CTH, the lack of hard proof. But they do make some interesting points, like, what if this technology is so advanced, so beyond anything we can comprehend, that we don't even recognize it? I mean, think about how a cell phone would look to someone from the 1500s.
Yeah, like some kind of magic mirror or something, right? So what are you saying? We might have already seen evidence of these cryptoterrestrials. We just didn't know what we were looking at.
It's possible. What we see is unexplained events or weird natural things, anomalies. It could be their technology, just operating on principles we haven't even dreamed of yet.
So not only are we looking for a needle in a haystack, but the needle might look like a piece of straw. Talk about a challenge. But they didn't stop there, did they? This paper, they start looking at historical mysteries as possible evidence. And you know how much I love a good historical mystery.
You do. And this is where the paper really shines. They're saying that what we know about history, well, it might not be the whole story. There are holes, inconsistencies that our traditional explanations just can't explain.
They're talking about things like Göbekli Tepe, right? That site in Turkey with structures so old, like 12,000 years. I read somewhere that it predates what we thought humans were capable of building back then.
Exactly. It's a huge wrench in our understanding of early civilizations. And it's not the only one. They also talk about the Antikythera mechanism, that ancient Greek device, the one found in a shipwreck.
I think I read about that. It was like some kind of ancient astronomical calendar, right?
It was more than a calendar. This thing is so complex, researchers think it was some kind of analog computer, centuries ahead of its time.
Wait, are you serious? An ancient computer? How could they even make something like that back then?
Exactly. And that's the point this paper is trying to make. Maybe our assumptions about how advanced ancient civilizations were are wrong. Maybe there's a missing piece of the puzzle, something we haven't figured out yet.
Okay, so are you saying that these ancient civilizations, like the ones who built Göbekli Tepe or that crazy Antikythera thing, maybe they had help, like from something else, something more advanced, maybe even cryptoterrestrial?
It's a bold claim, for sure, but that's the implication. Now, they're not outright saying it was aliens, but they are saying we shouldn't be so quick to dismiss other explanations, especially when the ones we have don't really make sense.
I have to admit, it's pretty compelling when you put it like that. It's like all those historical mysteries just got a whole lot more interesting.
Right. But wait, there's more. The paper also talks about all those myths and legends about civilizations living underground, beings with strange powers, stories that you find across so many cultures.
Oh, you mean like those stories about Atlantis or the Hollow Earth? Even like those old Celtic myths about fairies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying those could be distorted memories of an ancient advanced civilization?
It's definitely possible, isn't it? They're not saying we should take these stories literally, but maybe, just maybe, there is a grain of truth in them, a hint of something real that we just haven't been able to explain yet.
It's like all those stories suddenly have a whole new meaning. It's both amazing and a little creepy, to be honest.
Right. And that leads into another fascinating point this paper makes. It says that even with all our fancy technology and scientific advancements, we've barely scratched the surface when it comes to our own planet, especially with geology.
Right. It wasn't that long ago that they found those giant crystals in that cave in Mexico, or those massive underground rivers. It's like we're discovering new planets without even leaving Earth.
And what if, just like we're finding new species all the time, what if we found a hidden civilization tucked away in some corner of the planet we haven't explored yet? It's not impossible.
Okay, so we've got weird events, historical mysteries, places we haven't explored, and all these old stories. That's a lot to wrap our heads around. But what I'm getting from all of this is that this paper is about more than just saying cryptoterrestrials exist. It's about recognizing that we don't know everything.
Exactly. They are basically saying, hey, all this weird stuff is happening, and maybe, just maybe, we need to be open to the idea that we don't have all the answers yet.
It's a good reminder that learning is a journey, not a destination, right? There's always something new to discover. But before we get too philosophical, let's talk about the counter-arguments. What about the arguments against the cryptoterrestrial hypothesis? Got to look at both sides, right?
Absolutely. And to be fair to the paper, they address that too. They actually spend a lot of time exploring why people might be skeptical of the CTH.
All right, so we're back and ready to dive back into this cryptoterrestrial hypothesis. We've covered a lot of ground here, from those unexplained events to historical mysteries. But before we wrap things up, I want to go back to those 4 types of cryptoterrestrials we were talking about.
The 4 flavors of hidden intelligence.
Exactly. Let's break them down a bit more. Let's start with CTH1, those super advanced humans who went underground. What's the evidence for and against that one?
Well, with CTH1, the big thing they focus on in the paper is catastrophic events in human history. They point out that our planet has gone through a lot. We've had ice ages, floods, volcanic eruptions, all these events that reshaped the planet. And they ask, what if, way back when, there was a super advanced civilization, and some of them survived one of these disasters by going underground?
So instead of building bunkers, it's a whole civilization going underground. But even if they did, wouldn't we have found some trace of them by now?
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge with CTH1, the lack of hard proof. But the paper argues that we don't know as much as we think we do about what's under our feet.
That's true. There are probably caves and tunnels we haven't even discovered yet.
Exactly. There could be a whole civilization hidden down there.
Possible, but still a big if.
Yeah.
Okay, what about CTH2? That was the one with the separate intelligent species, right? Evolving in secret alongside us.
Yeah, and the argument there is that we're still finding new species all the time, even today, new insects, weird deep-sea creatures. We keep realizing that life finds a way, even in the craziest places. So they say, isn't it possible that an intelligent species could have evolved totally cut off from us, hidden in the ocean or some remote spot on land? Who knows?
Like a real-life version of those lost civilizations they always find in the Amazon in movies.
Exactly.
But with high-tech gadgets instead of blowguns, it really makes you wonder what we haven't found yet. Okay, CTH3. Now we're getting into ancient aliens territory.
Right, but this paper takes it in a different direction. They're not just saying aliens visited.
They're saying they stayed.
Exactly, that they're still here. CTH3 proposes that maybe extraterrestrials didn't just visit, they set up shop here, but kept themselves hidden.
So underwater bases, secret underground bunkers, that kind of thing.
You got it.
But again, if they're advanced enough for interstellar travel, shouldn't they have left something behind, some clue?
Well, the paper suggests that maybe their tech is so far beyond ours, we wouldn't even know what we were looking at. Like we'd think it was a natural phenomenon or just not see it at all.
Like it's cloaked or something.
Exactly. Or maybe they're just really good at hiding, observing us from the shadows.
Okay, that's a little creepy, but I guess it's possible. All right, last one. CTH4. This is the one with the fairies. Even for me, that's pushing it.
It's definitely the most out there idea.
So how do they even try to justify that in an academic paper?
Well, they approach it like this. What if the intelligence behind some of these UAPs isn't technology-based at all? What if it's something else entirely? Something that we just don't understand with our current science.
Like we're talking paranormal stuff here.
Basically, they're saying maybe those old stories about fairies, gnomes, all that, maybe those were real encounters, but misinterpreted, exaggerated over time.
Yeah.
Like, what if those weren't little people with wings, but something else entirely, doing things that look like magic?
So you're saying we should take those old fairy tales seriously?
Not literally,
Yeah.
but maybe there's a grain of truth in some of them, something real that we haven't figured out yet.
Okay, I don't know about that. That one's a bit much, even for me. but I appreciate how this paper makes you think. It's really not about giving us the answer, is it? It's more about reminding us how much we don't know.
You got it. It's about being open to new ideas, questioning our assumptions, especially when we're dealing with something as weird and unexplained as UAPs.
I love that. It's a good reminder that there's always more to learn, more to explore, both out there in the universe and maybe even right here on Earth.
Well said. The Cryptoterrestrial Hypothesis, as wild as it might seem, reminds us that the pursuit of knowledge never really ends. There's always something new to discover, something new to blow our minds.
And that's what we love about doing this show. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride. Until next time, keep looking up. And maybe down too. You never know what you might find.